The sun burned hot over the dusty auction square. Aliens from different planets shouted, bargained, and laughed. It was slave market day one of the cruelest events on this forgotten border world. People came to buy workers, fighters, pets, or playthings. But today, everyone was laughing at one broken girl chained near the back. She was small and skinny. Her body covered in bruises and dirt. Her skin was pale purple. But her left leg was made of old metal, rusted and bent. Her head hung low, silver hair falling across her face like a curtain. She didn't speak, didn't cry, didn't even move. She had already given up. The auctioneer slapped the metal pole next to her with a stick. "Look here, folks," he shouted. "A fine example of trash we found limping through Sector 5. The crowd laughed loud and cruel. "She's not even good for scrap," one alien barked. "Maybe I'll buy her to clean my ship's toilet," another said. And the crowd roared. The auctioneer grinned. Starting bid 1 credit. No hands raised, half a credit. He tried again, still silence, except for giggles and mutters. "She doesn't even have a name," someone said. "Only a number on her neck, burned into the skin. Were the digits X84. In the back of the crowd, a human man stood quietly. He wore a long coat, dusty boots, and had a calm face. He watched the girl with serious eyes, his hands in his coat pockets. No one noticed him at first. Humans were rare on this world. But when he stepped forward, heads turned. The auctioneer paused, confused. "Something catch your eye, human?" he asked, trying not to laugh. The man looked at the girl for a moment, then spoke. "I'll take her." The crowd fell into sudden silence. The auctioneer blinked. "What?" "This one? She's broken, barely alive." The human nodded slowly. "I know why her. You can buy 10 strong ones for the same price." The human didn't answer. He walked closer to the girl, knelt in front of her, and looked into her eyes. They were large and silver, full of pain, but still alive just barely. She stared at him without hope, like she was waiting for the next bad thing. "You're safe now," he whispered. "I'm not like them." She didn't respond. Didn't move, but her fingers trembled slightly. The auctioneer scratched his head. "All right then, she's yours. No refunds." The man paid and gently unchained her wrists. Her skin flinched at his touch, but he didn't grab her or pull. He just offered his hand, open and patient, for a moment. She stared at it like it was something strange. Then, slowly, she placed her small hand in his. As they walked away, the crowd murmured in confusion and mockery. "Must be broken in the head, too." One alien snorted. "Humans and their pets," someone else laughed. But the man didn't care, and the girl didn't look back. They walked toward a simple hover transport parked nearby. She moved slowly, her metal leg dragging behind. Making scraping sounds, the man helped her into the passenger seat and offered a water bottle. She didn't take it at first, until her dry throat gave in. She sipped slowly, carefully, like she thought it might be poison. "What's your name?" he asked. She looked down and whispered, "X84. He frowned. "That's not a name." She didn't know what else to say. He nodded to himself. "All right. We'll find you a real one soon." Then he turned the vehicle on. And they sped away from the market. Dust flew behind them, wiping away the voices and the jeers. Inside the transport, the silence was heavy. But something had changed, something small and quiet. The broken girl who had been laughed at by all was no longer alone, and for the first time in years, she began to wonder, maybe, just maybe, she was not trash. Maybe she belonged somewhere. Maybe. With him, the transport flew over dry lands and rocky cliffs. Inside, the alien girl sat quiet in the passenger seat. Her hands rested in her lap, fingers trembling slightly. She kept her eyes low. Afraid to look at the human beside her, she didn't understand why he bought her. Nobody had ever wanted her before, not without hurting her later. Cal, the human, glanced at her now and then. He didn't speak much, didn't force her to talk. He just drove with a steady calm, like he'd done this before. As the sun dipped low, the sky turned orange. He tapped a button on the panel, and the ship slowed. A quiet valley appeared below, with a small wooden cabin and a garden. He landed the transport and stepped out first. "Come on," he said gently. "You can rest here." The girl hesitated. Her rusted legs squeaking as she moved, she looked around nervously, waiting for the shot caller or commands. But none came. Cal walked ahead and unlocked the door. He turned back and held it open. Waiting, slowly, carefully, she walked in. Flinching at every creak of the wood, it smelled like warm soup and clean cloth. Soft light filled the room, and everything felt quiet, too quiet. She stood still by the door, unsure what to do. Cal didn't yell, didn't lock her in, didn't bark orders. He just moved to the kitchen and said, "You hungry?" Her stomach growled before she could answer. She hadn't eaten properly in days, maybe longer. But she still didn't move. He opened a pot and poured hot soup into a bowl. Then he placed it on the table, along with a soft piece of bread and water. "Come eat," he said, pulling out a chair. The girl limped forward, eyes darting around the room. Then she knelt on the floor beside the table. Her head down, Cal looked confused. "Why are you sitting there?" She whispered, "Slaves don't sit at tables." His face changed pain, mixed with anger. "Not here," he said. Walking over, he helped her up and gently placed her in the chair. "You're not a slave anymore." She stared at the food like it was a trap. Then slowly reached out, picked up the spoon, and took a sip. Her eyes widened. It was warm, salty, full of vegetables and soft meat. Tears filled her eyes, and she quickly wiped them. She hadn't tasted anything this good since she was a child before the chains. Cal sat on the other side, watching her quietly. He didn't rush her, didn't talk much. He just let her eat in peace. The bread was soft, the water cold and clean. She ate everything, even licking the spoon. Then froze in shame. "I'm sorry," she whispered. Afraid he'd hit her, he smiled softly. "You don't have to say sorry for being hungry." She looked at him. Really looked for the first time. His eyes were kind, his voice calm, his hands steady, not like the others, not like the ones who hurt her. After the meal, she sat silently, unsure what came next. Cal stood and brought a soft blanket. He pointed to a small room with a bed and clean sheets. "You can sleep there tonight." Her eyes widened. "I don't have to sleep on the floor." He shook his head. "Not unless you want to." She walked slowly into the room. Touching the bed like it was a dream, the mattress was soft, and the pillow smelled of fresh herbs. She turned back to him and asked, "Why are you doing this?" He paused, leaned against the doorframe, and said, "Because someone should have helped you a long time ago." She sat on the bed and whispered, "I don't know how to sleep in a bed." "You'll learn," he said gently. He turned off the lights, leaving only a small lamp glowing. As he walked away, she whispered one last thing. "Thank you." That night, she didn't sleep much. Her body was too used to pain, to noise, to fear. But the silence here was warm, not empty, for the first time. She felt like she might not be alone forever. She touched the edge of the blanket and pulled it up to her chin. And in the soft light, her eyes slowly closed. She didn't know what tomorrow would bring. But tonight, she wasn't in a cage. She wasn't a number, and maybe, just maybe, she was safe. The morning light came soft through the window. The small alien girl opened her eyes slowly. For a moment, she forgot where she was. There were no chains on her hands. No loud shouting, no pain in her side, just quiet, a warm bed, and the faint smell of fresh bread. She sat up carefully, still not used to the softness under her. Her metal leg clicked as she moved, but it didn't hurt as much today. She looked around the small room wooden walls. A shelf with folded towels, a small mirror. It didn't feel like a cage. It felt like a place someone would live in. Not just survive in. The door opened gently. And Cal stepped in with a tray. "Morning," he said with a calm smile. On the tray was bread, eggs, and something warm in a cup. She blinked, surprised again. He placed the tray beside her and sat on a stool. "You sleep okay?" he asked. She nodded once. Slowly, Cal studied her face. Noticing how alert she still was, "Your leg looks bad," he said. "We need to get it fixed before it causes real trouble." She looked down at the rusted, uneven limb and said nothing. "I have a friend who can help," he added. "He's good with machines." "Doesn't ask questions." She nodded again. Unsure what else to say, he hesitated, then asked softly, "Can I call you something other than X-84? She looked up at him, confused. "What do you mean?" She asked, her voice quiet. "A name," Cal said. "Something real. Not burned into your skin." She stared at him for a long time. No one had ever asked her that. She never thought she'd have a choice. He thought for a moment, then said, "There's a word from Old Earth. It means light." He looked into her eyes. Silver and silent. "How about Luma?" Her lips parted slightly, as if testing the sound. "Luma," she whispered. The name felt strange and soft on her tongue. It didn't hurt to say. It wasn't tied to pain, chains, or orders. It was hers. Cal smiled gently. "All right then. Luma it is." Something small sparked in her chest, warm and quiet. No one had ever given her anything without wanting something back. And now she had a name after breakfast. They boarded the transport again. Cal entered coordinates into the system and said, "Don't worry, my friend's place is quiet." Far from the cities, Luma sat beside him, holding the blanket he'd given her. Her hands still trembled sometimes, but not as much as before. They flew over rocky hills and old ruins. Luma stared out the window, taking in the colors and sky. She had never really looked before. Slaves weren't allowed to enjoy beauty. But now she could, even if just a little, soon. They reached a small workshop hidden behind broken cliffs. Old tech parts were scattered outside, and strange machines buzzed inside. A tall alien with 3 mechanical arms stepped out, wiping oil from his chin. "Cal?" he shouted. "Didn't expect you out here." "Hey Mara," Cal said, stepping out. The alien was older, her skin rough, but her smile kind. She looked at Luma and tilted her head. "She yours?" she asked. Cal nodded. "She's with me now." Mara walked over and crouched near Luma's leg. That's a gen for scrap limb." Barely holding together, Luma tensed, ready for mocking. But Mara just said, "We'll get you something better." Luma blinked in surprise. "No one's laughed at me yet," she whispered to herself. Inside the shop, Mara brought out tools and scanned the leg. Cal stayed close, holding Luma's hand as sparks flew and metal clicked. She squeezed his hand once, not out of fear but because she wanted him to stay. 3 hours passed, and finally, Mara stepped back. "All done," she said proudly. Luma stood up slowly, her new leg shining silver with smooth joints. It moved without pain, without grinding. She took a step, then another, and smiled wide before she could stop herself. I can walk," she said, shocked. Mara grinned. "You can run if you want." Cal looked proud. And Luma turned to him. "Thank you," she whispered again. This time, her voice didn't shake. On the way back, she asked a question. "Why did you help me?" Cal thought for a moment. "Because no one else did," he said simply. "And because I saw something in your eyes that day." She looked away, unsure how to respond, but inside, the spark from earlier had grown. She wasn't just a number anymore. She was Luma. She had a name, a working leg, and someone who stayed. Asterisk Luma stood in front of the mirror, touching her neck gently. The smooth skin was interrupted by a dark scar raised. Burned and ugly. It was the brand, the one she had since she was a child. A number carved into her flesh by a laser tool. 10 to 84, it was fading now, but it was still there, like a shadow from the past that refused to go. She thought maybe, if she looked long enough, it would disappear, but it didn't. No matter how much she scrubbed, or how new her leg was, or how clean the bedsheets felt, the mark still stayed. Outside the cabin, Cal was repairing the fence near the garden. He whistled softly, the same tune he always did in the mornings. Luma stepped outside, her new leg moving smooth and silent. The wind brushed against her face, and the sun warmed her skin. But her hand still stayed on her neck, fingers over the mark. Cal looked up and smiled. "Sleep okay?" She nodded, then walked over slowly. "Can I ask something?" She said, voice small. "Of course," he replied, wiping dirt from his hands. She hesitated, eyes lowering again. "Why didn't you ask about this?" She pointed to the scar. He followed her hand, then shrugged. "Because I didn't need to, but it means I was." "Property," she whispered. "You're not property," he said, firm but kind. "Not to me. Not to anyone." She wanted to believe him. But the scar still burned. "It's not just a mark," she said. "It's a signal." Cal's expression changed. "A signal?" She nodded. "The slavers? They used brands like this to track runaways." Her voice trembled. "If they scan it, they'll know where I am." Cal stepped back, thinking fast. "Why didn't you tell me before?" "I didn't know," she said. "I thought it stopped working, but I had a dream last night." Her breath hitched. "I saw one of them, coming for me." Cal put a hand on her shoulder. "Let's not wait to find out," he said. He brought out a scanner from inside the cabin and gently hovered it over her neck. It beeped once. The screen blinked red signal active. Luma froze. Her knees nearly gave out. But Cal caught her. "They're coming," she said. Barely able to breathe, Cal looked calm, but his jaw tightened. "Then we need to move within minutes." Cal packed supplies, food, and medical gear. He handed her a small blaster and said, "Just in case." She stared at the weapon like it was poison. "I've never used one," she whispered. "I hope you won't have to," he replied. "But I'll teach you." She nodded, heart pounding. They left the cabin and climbed into the transport. The engines hummed to life, and the ship lifted into the sky from above. Luma looked down at the garden she had just planted yesterday. It already felt like a memory. She sat quietly, the blaster in her lap, her hands still on her neck. "What if they find me?" she asked. "Then they'll have to go through me first," Cal said. Eyes forward, they flew for hours, far from cities. Into old mining zones now abandoned, caves and tunnels filled the landscape dark. Quiet, hidden, perfect for laying low. Cal parked the ship inside one of the deep caves and covered it with camouflage netting. Inside the rocky shelter, they lit a small fire. Luma sat near it. Arms around her knees, Cal handed her a small round device. "This will scramble your signal temporarily," he said. "But it won't last forever." She held it tight. "Like a life stone. I thought I was free," she whispered. "You still are," he said, sitting beside her. "No." "I'm just hiding," she replied. Again, Cal looked into the fire. Then turned to her. "You are not hiding," he said. "You're surviving. There's a difference." She looked at him, eyes wide and searching. "You really think I can be more than this?" "I know you can," he said. "I've seen it." She didn't answer, but her eyes shimmered in the firelight. Later that night, they practiced aiming with the blaster. Cal showed her how to hold it, how to breathe, how to shoot. Her hands shook, but her aim was steady. "You're a fast learner," he said. Impressed, she gave a shy smile, then turned serious. If they come, I won't run. I'll stand with you, in the shadows of the cave, surrounded by stone and silence. A scar still burned on her neck, but inside her, something new had started to rise. She wasn't just the broken girl anymore. She was Luma, and this time, she was not alone. The cave was quiet, but Luma couldn't sleep. She sat with her back against the wall, blaster in hand. Every sound made her jumper drip of water. A rustle of stone, the low hum of the fire. Cal had told her to rest, but her eyes stayed open. Scanning the dark, in her mind, she kept hearing the beeping scanner from earlier. Signal active. She touched the mark on her neck. The heat was gone, but the memory remained like a fresh burn. What if they came in the night? What if Cal wasn't fast enough? What if they took her back? She didn't want to be a number again. She didn't want to disappear. Cal stirred from his sleeping mat, blinking at the glow of the fire. You okay? He asked softly. She nodded, but her hands were shaking. He sat up and moved closer. Here, he said, placing his jacket around her shoulders. You're not alone anymore. Luma looked at him, her voice barely a whisper. Promise me you won't leave if they come. Cal met her gaze. Steady and clear. I'm not going anywhere just then. The scanner beeped. 3 signals approaching. Cal stood fast. Grabbed the emergency pack and a second blaster. They're here, he said. Luma's breath caught in her throat. He pressed a switch on his wristband. Outside, the camo netting dropped, and the ship powered up with a low hum. Cal turned to her, voice calm but sharp. We move, now follow me. Stay close, Luma nodded, her heart racing. They ran into the cold night, the ship rising in the air as they climbed aboard. Cal jumped into the pilot's seat and shouted, Hold on! The engines roared and the transport shot forward through the narrow canyon. Behind them, bright lights appeared in the sky bounty hunter ships. Fast and deadly, Luma looked back through the window. They're catching up. Cal flicked switches, twisting the controls. Hold tight, he said. We're going low. The ship dove down, kicking up sand and dust as it skimmed the desert floor. Sharp rocks and broken ruins flashed past the windows. One blast hit their rear panel, sparks flying. Luma screamed and grabbed the wall. I'm sorry, she cried. I didn't mean to bring this danger to you. Cal didn't look back. This isn't your fault, he said. This is on them. The hunters fired again. A loud explosion echoing through the canyon. Cal swerved hard, nearly tipping the ship. We need cover, he muttered, eyes searching the map. There. Ahead was a collapsed mining station, half buried in sand, half open to the sky. Cal flew the ship under the metal supports and killed the lights. Don't make a sound, he whispered. They sat in darkness, hearts pounding, outside. The hunter's ship circled, search beams slicing through the dust. Luma pressed herself into a corner. Every second felt like an hour. She whispered, What if they scan again? Cal handed her a new device, small and blinking blue. This one masks you completely but only for 30 minutes. She put it on. The blinking light steady against her skin. Outside, one ship hovered too close. A noise pinged through the scanner, sweep in progress. Cal held his breath, gripping his blaster. Luma closed her eyes, silently praying. Then, silence. The ships drifted away, their engines fading into the night. Luma exhaled hard, collapsing into the seat. They're gone, she whispered. For now, Cal added. He turned the lights back on and looked at her seriously. This won't stop until we finish it, she nodded. Her voice steady now. Then let's finish it. Cal raised an eyebrow. You're not scared anymore? I am, she said, but I'm more scared of going back. Her fingers curled around the blaster. I'd rather fight. Cal smiled, not the kind that says, good job, but the kind that says, "You're becoming something more. You're stronger than you know," he said. They left the mining station at dawn, flying in silence as the sky turned orange and gold. Luma watched the sun rise from the window. Something felt different inside her. Not just the fear, not just the running, but something bigger, something like fire. She wasn't a number. She wasn't a slave. She wasn't weak. She was Luma, and she had survived again. The sun had barely risen when Cal landed the transport deep inside a dead canyon. This place didn't exist on any official maps. Broken rocks, dust, and silence stretched for miles. No towns, no roads, no watchers, just still air and shadows. Luma stepped off the ship and looked around. Her new leg sank slightly in the soft dust, but it held steady. She felt different today, not just stronger, but clearer. Running had kept her alive. But something inside her said it was time to stop running. Cal checked the scanner again. No signals, no pings, no trace of the hunters. But he didn't relax. "They'll return," he said quietly. "They always do." Luma walked toward the edge of a rock cliff and looked down at the wasteland. "Then let them," she whispered. Cal looked at her, surprised by her tone. "You want to stay and fight?" She turned, eyes calm but fierce. "I don't want to live scared," she said. "I've done that long enough." Cal nodded slowly. "Then we'll prepare, inside the transport." Cal opened a hidden compartment in the floor. Metal crates lined with old weapons, shielding tools, and portable traps. "Didn't know you were a soldier," Luma said softly. "I'm not," he replied. "But I've been hunted before." They spent the day setting traps across the canyon entrance. Wire lines, pressure mines, smoke bomb sinks to slow the enemy down. Luma followed every step carefully, learning fast. She planted 2 sensors near the ridge. When Cal tested them, her trap worked better than his. She smiled, a real one, full of quiet pride, that evening. They sat beside a small campfire behind a rock wall. The flames danced against the stone, and wind howled in the distance. Luma chewed on dried fruit while Cal sharpened a small blade. "Do you miss Earth?" she asked suddenly. Cal paused, then shrugged. "Sometimes," he said. "But it doesn't miss me." She looked at him, puzzled. "What do you mean?" He gave a half smile. "I was a fixer. Did work no one else wanted when I quit. No one cared." Luma stared into the fire. "I know that feeling," she whispered. Cal placed the knife down and looked at her. "They made you believe you had no worth," he said. "But you're wrong, Luma. You've survived what would break most people." She didn't answer. But her fingers tightened around the blaster in her lap. It wasn't fear. Not anymore, it was focus. She was ready. Suddenly, a soft ping echoed from the scanner. 2 heat signatures approaching. Luma stood, heart racing. Cal checked the display. "They're not scouts," he said. "They're hunters' heavy gear." Fast pace, he handed her a small unit. "If we get separated, you call me." Luma nodded, voice steady. "We won't." They moved into position, Cal behind a rock near the entrance, Luma behind an old engine shell. She breathed slowly, just like he taught her. Her finger rested near the trigger. The dust rose in the distance, 2 shadows coming fast. Then the ground shook. Boom! Her trap went off, flames burst through the rocks. Sending one hunter flying, the other rolled, screamed. Then ran behind cover. Cal opened fire, and the hunter returned shots. Energy blasts lit the canyon like lightning. Luma stayed low, waited, then spotted the second hunter limping. She aimed carefully, heart pounding. "Come on," she whispered. The hunter stepped out. Zap! Her shot hit his shoulder, and he dropped his weapon, screaming. Cal rushed forward and tackled the first hunter to the ground. A struggle, a punch. Another shot, then silence. Both hunters were down. Cal stood up, breathing hard. Luma walked toward him, her hands still shaking. "I hit him," she said, shocked. "You saved me," Cal replied, smiling. "You saved us both." They tied the hunters and left them in a deep pit. Far from any beacon by nightfall, the canyon was silent again. This time, not because of fear, but because of victory. Luma sat on a high rock, watching the stars. Cal joined her, carrying 2 cups of warm broth. "Here," he said, handing her one. She sipped it slowly. "It tastes better when you're free," she said with a grin. He laughed softly. "You're not the same girl I met at that market." She looked at him, eyes shining. "I'm not," she said. "I'm not broken anymore." The wind passed through the canyon, soft and cool below them. The fires burned low, but the warmth stayed. And Luma knew, deep in her chest. She didn't just survive today, she chose to stand. She chose to fight, and she won. The stars above the canyon stretched wide like endless fireflies. Luma sat quietly beside Cal, her back resting against the warm rock wall. The fire flickered between them, soft orange light dancing across their faces. For once, she wasn't thinking about running. She wasn't listening for footsteps or looking over her shoulder. She was just there. Her new leg was scraped from the fight. Her arms ached, and dust clung to her clothes. But her heart felt still, like it had stopped floating and finally found ground. Cal leaned back with a soft sigh. "We made it through the worst part," he said. Luma looked at him, her voice calm. "Are they really gone?" "For now," Cal answered. "But others may come." She nodded, not afraid anymore. "I'm ready next time," she said. He smiled. "I know you are." They sat in silence for a while, listening to the fire crackle and the wind brush the canyon walls. Then Luma said quietly, "What happens next?" Cal turned to her. "That depends on you." She blinked. Unsure what he meant. "I don't have a place to go," she said slowly. "No family, no home, nothing." Cal watched her closely. "You do now," he said. "If you want it," her heart skipped. "You mean?" "Stay with you." He nodded. "Not because you owe me, not because I saved you, but because I want you to live free." Choose for yourself. Luma looked into the fire. All her life, people chose for her where she slept, what she did, what she was worth. Now, someone was giving her a choice, a real one. She whispered, "I want to stay." Then louder, more certain, "I want to stay with you." The next morning, they packed the supplies and left the canyon. But this time, it wasn't running, it was returning. Returning to the cabin that once felt temporary. Now, it felt like a beginning. When they landed, Luma stepped out first. The same wind blew through the trees. The same old fence waited to be fixed. But she saw it all differently now. This wasn't just a safe place. This was her place. Inside the cabin, she saw the mirror again. She walked to it, brushed her hair aside, and stared at the old scar. The mark was still there. Burned deep, but for the first time. She didn't hate it. It was part of her. Yes. But it wasn't all of her. She picked up a scarf from the table. Cal had left it there for her. A soft blue fabric with small earth stars stitched in. She wrapped it gently around her neck, then smiled at her reflection. That night, someone knocked on the cabin door. Cal opened it slowly, blaster hidden at his side. But it wasn't a hunter, it was a galactic officer. Female, tall, and dressed in white and silver armor. She held a scanner and a badge. "We received a tracker alert," she said. "Is the girl named Luma here?" Cal stepped aside. Cautious Luma came forward, standing tall. The officer scanned her neck, then looked at her face. "You were illegally marked," she said. "You are not registered property." Luma swallowed hard. "What does that mean?" "It means you're free officially, completely. No bounty, no claim, no pursuit." Luma's eyes filled with tears. Cal placed a hand on her shoulder. The officer looked at him. You the one who found her? Cal nodded. Then by galactic law, you may be her guardian if she agrees. Luma smiled. I do, she said, without a second of doubt. She belongs with me, Cal added quietly. The officer stamped a mark into her device, nodded, and left. No more scanners, no more numbers. Only freedom. Days passed, and the cabin filled with small things books. Tools, flowers, Luma picked herself. She learned to cook, laughed at Cal's terrible jokes, and fixed broken panels better than he could at night. She'd sit by the fire and trace the stars on her scarf. Sometimes she'd touch the scar on her neck, not out of fear, but to remind herself how far she'd come. One evening, as they shared a simple dinner, Cal raised a glass of fresh water to new names, he said. To new beginnings, Luma replied, tapping her glass gently against his. Outside, the stars returned, bright and endless. But Luma didn't feel small under them anymore. She didn't feel like a number, a prisoner or a ghost. She felt whole. She felt wanted. She felt like she belonged. And as the night wrapped around the little cabin in the wild, Luma smiled softly and whispered to herself, They mocked me once, but now I have everything they never gave me.